in the broad themes which you're receiving on the feedback, plus in the broad themes of what kind of challenges providers are facing to deliver on, for a provider who are new in the NDIS space, the 2-year-old or 5-year-old provider, they're still understanding what's the lay of the land is, what they are expected to deliver. So what are the commonalities into the new providers? What are the bigger challenges they're facing as a regular basis?
Look, we get feedback from many different providers and we don't quite group it in that way.
Okay.
But in my discussions with a range of providers, I think the first thing that I often talk about with providers is the capability framework.
Mm-hmm.
So if people haven't looked at the workforce capability framework, which I know some 40,000 already have, that's the number of people that have visited the framework website, I would encourage you to do that because that's a how-to guide for you. It's all free. It's got lots of tools to support providers around everything from recruitment right through to how do you embed continuous improvement in the daily practices of your workers. So there's those kind of tools that sit there that as a new provider, I would really encourage new providers to be soaking all of those up and thinking about what a difference they could make in their own business around making sure their offering and the way in which they're providing services is the best that it can possibly be.
And from a point of view of these, again, coming back to the same compliance conversation, two set of providers, registered and unregistered providers, and the difference in the compliance and what kind of role do they play in the whole delivery of services. And then they both are critical in some way or form, depending upon how you look in what region you think and what kind of services, and the choice and control argument. How do you see that playing out in the coming years, and what's the evolution of that cycle of getting either more unregistered provider to be registered or vice versa, or what's the pathway from here for us?
So first of all, I want to be really clear that it doesn't matter if you're registered or unregistered, if you're a sole practitioner or a large organisation, everyone who delivers any kind of support or service under the NDIS is covered by the Code of Conduct. And for the Code of Conduct, you've got practice standards, which registered providers must demonstrate their alignment to. But for unregistered providers, they're also part of your how-to guide. And then, as we've already talked about, you've got the capability framework. So they all give providers a really good indication of what's being expected. We also put out quite detailed information regularly about what's expected. And I would encourage providers, registered or unregistered, to make sure that you're on our mailing list, you're regularly getting, for example, the practice alerts and the newsletters which highlight good practice and not so good practice, so that there's that continuous engagement and learning. If we have a registered provider that isn't complying with the Code of Conduct, then we have the ability to take action. So a couple of points on this. First of all, that as I sit here today, last month, more than 60% of all of the complaints we received were about unregistered providers, and we have ability we're required to follow that through and undertake compliance to investigate, take that necessary action. The other thing that I'd indicate around unregistered providers is if you look at something like our register of those that we have banned, more than half of those relate to unregistered individuals and entities. So we can take a range of compliance actions. I would really encourage everyone to make sure they're familiar with the Code of Conduct, looking at the practice standards, accessing the workforce capability framework as a minimum.